Hi, I'm Robert Reich. No institution is more responsible for educating the CEOs of big corporations around the world than business schools, inculcating in them a set of ideas and principles that have resulted in a pay gap between CEOs of big companies and ordinary workers that's gone from 20 to 1 50 years ago to almost 300 to 1 today, at least in the United States, and we're starting to see similar ratios in other countries. A half-century ago, CEOs typically managed companies for the benefit of all their stakeholders, not just shareholders, but also their employees, communities, and the nation as a whole. For 30 years after World War II, corporations prospered, and so did the middle class in the United States and in other countries. Wages rose and benefits increased. It was a virtuous cycle of higher profits accompanied by more and better jobs. But starting in the late 1970s, a new vision of the corporation and the role of CEOs emerged, prodded by corporate raiders, hostile takeovers, junk bonds, and leveraged buyouts. Shareholders began to predominate over other stakeholders, and CEOs began to view their primary role as driving up share prices. To do this, they had to cut costs, especially payrolls, which constituted their largest expense. Corporate statesmen were replaced by something more like corporate butchers, with their nearly exclusive focus being to cut out the fat and cut to the bone. In consequence, the compensation packages of CEOs and other top executives soared, as did share prices, but ordinary workers lost jobs and wages, and many communities were abandoned. Almost all the gains from growth went to the top. The results were touted as being efficient because resources were theoretically shifted to higher and better uses, to use the dry language of economics, but the human cost of this transformation has been substantial, and the efficiency benefits have not been widely shared. Most American workers today, for example, are no better off than they were 30 years ago, adjusted for inflation. Most are less economically secure. So it seemed worthwhile for business school faculties to assess this transformation and ask whether maximizing shareholder value, a convenient goal now that so many CEOs are paid with stock options, continues to be the proper goal for the modern corporation. Can an enterprise be truly successful in a society becoming ever more divided between a few highly successful people at the top and a far larger number who are not thriving? And given that so few in society, or even in other advanced nations, have shared in the benefits of what the largest corporations and biggest banks have achieved, it must be asked whether the graduates of business schools are making the most of their capacities in terms of their potential for improving human well-being. Again, business schools are important. Efficiency is important. But the question has to be asked whether the current model of business schools that focuses on shareholders and maximizing shareholder returns is really good for society, or whether instead we need to go back to a different form of capitalism, stakeholder capitalism, in which big corporations understood that it wasn't just the shareholders that they were responsible to, but all of the stakeholders in society. Thank you.